You are now watching the Google's Perspective live every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Welcome to a new episode of the Guru Perspective. And of course, I'm your host, Hugh Lee. Wanted to get with you guys and tell you what I seen over the weekend, the good, the bad, and the ugly, of course. First and foremost, I want to start off and I want to talk about some things that happened in the collegiate level of NCAA football. I want to start off, and I couldn't start the show off right without talking about the rivalry game, of course. That is Michigan State. The game was a little lackluster to me. No disrespect to Michigan State, but I kind of figured right now that this would have been a easy game, but it was a little bit tougher at the end. I think that they started to come alive at that point in time, but it was too little, too late. It wasn't really a spectacular game when I looked at the stats I seen, and I said, okay, the main thing was in this game, Bryce Underwood, he's still developing. You know, he's a good quarterback. He got a hell of an arm. He can sling it with the best of them. I just think that he's going to have to work on his timing a little bit more, focus on floating the ball when he needs to float and sticking it on a guy when he needs to. His game was basically average at best, maybe a below average. 8 of 17, 86 yards is not really spectacular. But then, on the other end, I seen with Aiden Childs, he didn't do as well neither. He did slightly better than, Michigan's quarterback, but he had 130 yards, 14 of 28. So that wasn't really doing too much better. The main people who carried the team it was just some good defensive efforts from Michigan and Michigan State at some points. But the running backs carried the weight of the teams, man. Malachi Frazier looked really good for Michigan State. 14 carries, 109 yards. And then our do-it-all back, man, he was spectacular. I couldn't believe that he left Alabama and Alabama let him walk like they did, man. Justice Hayes is a phenomenal player. He had 152 yards, 26 carries, and he had 2 touchdowns. He was the shining star on this game, and he took the team and put them on his back like normal. For now, it's like, you're going to see Bryce Underwood, and he's going to excel, and he's only going to get better. I mean, he was just playing in high school just recently. So, I want him to get his chance to develop. But, having a guy like a workhorse, Justice Haynes, man, that's all you really need right now. He'll definitely get it under rep. What I like about it is the fact that this is still a young team. They lost a couple of games, but I'm just trying to see how good they'll be within the next year or so. That's what I'm excited about, being a Michigander myself. That final score was 31-20. I want to move on and I want to talk about number 3, Texas A&M versus number 20, LSU. And the reason I want to talk about this game, of course, it was a blowout victory. But what I liked about this game is the fact that you can see Texas A&M is definitely one of the top teams in the league right now. And I want to see how they play or how this plays out as far as going into the playoffs. What I was surprised about too is the quarterback played okay, Marcel Reed, but he didn't play great. He had 202 yards, 12 of 21, and he had 2 touchdowns, but he had 2 picks on the game, and they were costly. I feel bad too for Gus Nussmeyer, Garrett Nussmeyer. I'm sorry. He didn't play as good as he normally played, but at the same time too, I just can't blame it full heartedly on Garrett Nussmeyer and say that it was just all on him. He does a good job when he's protected. When he's not protected, and that's been a norm lately, he basically have hiccups. He had 168 yards, 22 of 35 in his touchdown. I just feel like too, the dual threat quarterback that they have with Marcel Reed was the one to mention right now, because he had the 2 touchdowns through the air, but then he had 2 touchdowns on the ground with 13 carries, 108 yards. So yeah, that was basically enough to get them over on this game. Other than that, I seen Harlem Berry, and he was average at best with 59 yards on 9 carries, but he did get in the end zone. That score was 49-25, like I said, but then at the same time, I kind of figured out how many chances are they going to give to, Brian Kelly before they release him. And after this game, that was just the writing on the wall that he was not going to be LSU's, coach after this game and this season here out. So when I looked and I was like, okay, I haven't seen nothing yet about him. But then all of a sudden, that's all you seen in the news that they released him. And the crazy part is too, it was 8 power conference coaches that was fired, as of October the 27th. So that was something that interested me. But yeah, because that game was definitely a blowout, 49-25. But then just wanted to say, I kind of figured after losing this many games with LSU, the 3 games, that Brian Kelly was going to be dismissed, and that's exactly what happened. I want to talk about the Oklahoma and the Ole Miss game. It was a very good game. At first, I thought that Ole Miss was going to cruise in this game, and I said, "Yeah, they look like they're the better team by far." Oklahoma said, "Not so fast." They didn't want them to be disrespected on their home turf. And they played every bit that way. They ended up taking the lead, but the problem was when they had the lead, they couldn't keep the lead. The biggest issue with Oklahoma was I just feel like it was poor execution on different phases of the game. When you have 2 fumbles that get recovered, and I know for sure, I just couldn't believe it. Like you guys couldn't even keep the ball, on special teams when they were kicking the ball off to you. Just little things like that they made with Oklahoma is the reason I feel like they lost this game because I believe they could have won and beat Ole Miss. At the first half, I didn't think so. But then the second half, they came out swinging and they played like they were an Oklahoma team who was on a mission, who wanted to prove their point. Like I said, too many mental mistakes with this team. And I just don't understand. Lincoln Riley will get guys on this team and they'll play great on offense, but the defense just never seemed like they step up. And that's been the Achilles heel for them. John Mateer basically had 223 yards and a touchdown. Wasn't as effective, but the person who impacted this game was Xavier Robinson. He had 109 yards and 2 scores for, Oklahoma. But one guy that I definitely like, and I feel like he'll definitely keep his position right now, a quarterback in Ole Miss, is Trinidad Chamberlain. He had 315 yards and he had a touchdown on the day. But the kid to give the credit to is Kawan Lacey, the running back. I like the way he played in that game. He had a lot of carries, 27 for 78 yards, but he got the 2 scores, 2 big scores when it mattered. Just felt like this game could have been evenly played and it was 2 good teams. And I still don't feel like it was a huge blowout, but I just feel like the mental mistakes needs to be addressed and cleaned up. And I don't know what's going to happen after this game. I don't believe that he'll be fired or anything, but on this day, Ole Miss showed that they was the better team by far. Like I said, that final score was 34-26. I want to get to the Mizzou and Vanderbilt game because to me, that was the best collegiate game that I've seen over the weekend. It was a tough game. They were going blow for blow, pound for pound. Just at the end, I just feel like Diego Pava was the better quarterback. And he didn't even really do as much as far as affect the game. He had 129 yards and he had a pick on the day. And on the other hand, Mizzou's quarterback, Matt Zollers, had basically 138 yards and a touchdown. It wasn't as impactful when it came to the scoring, but the defense and just them playing chess was a really good game. I just feel like in this game it could have went to anybody, but Vanderbilt was the better team. I think definitely people need to, put respect on Vanderbilt's name now as the organization or as a team in general in college. They were a laughing stock of college. That was an easy win. Alabama found out last season they're a team to be reckoned with now. What I look at is when I see these guys play, they might not have the big names, but then they got that heart and they play for their coach. So yeah, I like to see them play. That final score was 17-10, and they're a sneaky team. If they continue to win and win on a high level, they possibly might sneak their way into that playoff. The next game to me was South Florida and Memphis, the upset game, that caught me off guard because I definitely felt like South Florida would be a little better off in this game, especially being ranked at this point. I'm not saying that it was a blowout or anything, but just still shocked at the fact that they lost to Memphis after Memphis fell off last week. Brendan Lewis, the quarterback for Memphis, looked pretty sharp in the game, 307 yards and 2 touchdowns. On the other end, just didn't really see too much from Byron Brown. He had 269 yards, a touchdown, and he had a pick on the day. The person who carried this team to South Florida, that is, was the actual receiver. He looked pretty sharp, and Keshawn Singleton. He had 88 yards, but at the same time, though, I like the dual threat that you have from Byron Brown because he had a hell of a game. Besides that pick, he had 269 yards through the air and 121 yards on the ground on 21 carries, and he had 2 touchdowns as well. The crazy part was I was thinking that that'd be enough to, close out this Memphis team. But Memphis basically felt like after they got knocked out the rankings, they had a point to prove. And the point was they still one of these legit teams and they deserve to still have a ranking. And they just wanted to let you know that that loss was a fluke on their record. And they showed it too from knocking off number 18, South Florida. That was a pretty good game. It was high scoring and it had everything that you wanted to see in there too. It was a pretty good game to the very end. Houston versus number 24 Arizona State was another game that shocked me. I was surprised because you never know with Arizona State. They'll beat a highly ranked team in the top 25 and then they'll lose to an unranked team. So they've been very iffy this year. Very questionable if you ask me. What I looked at in this game too was Connor Wegman. The quarterback had 201 yards in the score through the air, and he had 111 yards on the ground with 2 touchdowns. The tight end had a really good game too, as well. Tanner Kozoy, he had 100 yards on 7 receptions, and he had a score as well. But just really the way the quarterback played and stepped up for this team, that really surprised me because I didn't think Houston was going to beat them. But they proved me wrong. And that final score was 24-16. They were beating them to the point where I think Arizona State had to come back in this game to kind of make it look legit because at first the game was getting out of hand. It was starting to be a little bit of a blowout contestant, and it wasn't even contested. That's what I meant to say. But when you look at it, they barely lost, and then Arizona State did try to make a humble comeback, but just too little, too late. One of the games I was concerned with is Texas won, but it took them overtime to beat a Mississippi State team who I didn't really think was that great. I think they're okay, but at the same time, when I'm saying that is I got to put respect on everybody in the SEC's name because when they play, the games hit different. Meaning I can't clown Texas without saying what I was going to say about the other team who almost lost or was on the ropes this week, and I will discuss them as well. But yes, it's just really a shocker that Texas only lost 2 games this year because they haven't played that well, and be 6-2 is still impressive to me. Archie Manning had 346 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns, and a pick on the day. But then on the other end, Blake Shapen had a good game as well, 381 yards, and he had 4 touchdowns. So yeah, it was a pretty good duel when it came to the two, Archie Manning and Shapen. But like I said, at the end of the day, Texas ended up getting a victory. Mississippi State lost at home. That final score was 45-38. Pretty good contest. Then I want to talk about Illinois and Washington. This was another upset. And then, if you want to call it an upset, because it was a blowout victory for Washington, that surprised me because you had a number 23 ranked Illinois team. But going into Washington, I thought, yeah, they don't really have much that they have to go through. They could just go in here and just bully Washington, but it was just totally different, from my opinion. Demond Williams had 280 yards and 4 touchdowns. That was the part that impressed me. And This is a kid that I didn't really pay that much attention to after Michigan beat them. I didn't really give them as much credit because I just felt like Washington was just going to be one of them teams everybody walk over until I seen them just put a thrashing on Illinois. And that's when I was like, maybe I need to start looking out for this kid because he looked pretty sharp in his game. And to have 280 yards, he was 26 of 33. So, he didn't have a lot of people drop passes, and the 4 touchdowns was actually phenomenal as well. I had to give credit where credit was due. And Luke Alkmeyer, he had a pretty rough contest. He had 199 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he had 2 picks on the day. But the crazy thing was that final score, because you could call it an upset if you want to, but when you beat a team who's a ranked team 42-25, that's definitely not really considered an upset. They bullied those guys. Yeah, they were at home, but then I feel like being ranked in Illinois, basically losing 2 games already. I thought that they would play a little bit above average, and it was just a lackluster game on their part. 6-2 Washington, people need to pay close attention to them too. I'm not saying that they will go to the playoffs, but they'll definitely be in the bowl game. Those were basically most of the college games I wanted to talk about. But then, like I said too, I wanted to let you guys know that, like I said, that there was 8 power conference head coaches who was fired. And I'm about to read them off like I told you before. This was effective October the 27th. Brian Kelly, he was released from LSU. They're going to pay him his buyout money, the $54 million that was left on his contract. Billy Napier from Florida, definitely feel like they didn't buy into him, and he as when he was the coach, because they didn't play good, and they have a pretty good team over there, one of the best defenses in all of college football. But the offense didn't click. DJ um, Wagner didn't play as good, and I just feel like that was one of the issues with the team. And that's why I think that they're in the position they're in right now, unfortunately, with him being dismissed. James Franklin, Penn State, they had high hopes on him, thought that he would really step up and help that team go to the next level, but it just didn't go out that way. And I'm sorry, too, because I've always felt like from Penn State, they'll have a high, expectations, and they just never live up to them, especially when it comes to playing ranked teams. That's been a big issue. It's not the fact that they're losing games. But when it comes to the bigger teams, like when you have to play a Michigan or Oregon or some of the teams there who are ranked, and it's basically testing your will and your, team and how good of a team they are, they just always fall short. Sam Pittman from Arkansas, you can kind of see that, unfortunately, because they haven't played well. They haven't played 500 ball since he's been there. Mike Gundy, he's one of the more popular coaches from Oklahoma State. You talk to me, I'm a man, I'm 40. When he had that crazy, outburst in his interview that made him a legend, but it still didn't keep his job because that team didn't play up to expectations. Brent Pry from Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is definitely not the team that they used to be. Very disappointed, because you had Tyrod Taylor, you had Mike Vick, and some of the good guys, and the NFL, but it just didn't materialize when it came to your team this season. So unfortunately, he had to go. Deshaun Foster from UCLA, I definitely didn't think that they were going to do much this year. And I just feel like the whole thing with Nico leaving Tennessee and all the crazy things that happened in that situation about the NIL money, it didn't really matter because he went over there and then didn't have the good expectations that we thought that he would. The team basically didn't do good at all. They still beat Penn State, but then that still didn't save Deshaun Foster's job. And Troy Taylor from Stanford. I wasn't really surprised with that. I just felt like it was time to move on at this point. And now I want to move on, and I want to talk about some of the things that goes on in the NFL right now. And it wasn't really as good of a week for me in the NFL. I thought that it was okay, but it was a lot of blowouts. Teams that I didn't like got blew out, so I was happy. But other than that, as far as the brand itself, it wasn't really good. And I don't want to get too in depth or get to the main things that I really wanted to talk about as far as how bad the, Officiating's been over the weekend. It was ridiculous. So many blown bad calls around the whole league, and it's been going on for a while now. But I don't really want to get into that. I just want to focus on football because eventually I might have another show where I will discuss that issue because that has to be dealt with. And Roger Goodell got to definitely do better on his end because the NFL right now definitely don't get any credit. And there's too many things going on right now with the NFL to look like some of these games are fixed and rigged. But we already know what's going on in the NBA. Like I said, that's a topic for another day. But I want to get into the week 8 aftermath. Starting off with the Minnesota Vikings going to the Chargers. That game was a blowout game. And then I think Carson Wentz got hurt, and they will have J.J. McCarthy playing the Detroit Lions going into Detroit, in Ford Field. So I want to see how that looks. Like I said, any given Sunday, but I will be making my predictions, and I'll let you know my predictions on every game coming up this week coming up as well. New England and the Cleveland Browns, like I said, I don't really want to get off into that. It was a good game for Myles Garrett, but Myles Garrett know that he took that money and knowing that he wasn't going to have a team behind him. He looked at all the zeros and focused on that versus trying to, cement his legacy with a Super Bowl. But I mean, sometimes people look at it and they feel like if they can get that money, they'd rather get their bag than to focus on trying to get less than what they normally would get to win. I mean, that's just the way it is. I think the best game actually on Sunday, and people don't think I'm crazy for saying this, but this was the only game I've seen that wasn't really a blowout. Most of the game was blowouts and they were really bad. But this game with the Jets and the Bengals was a blowout at first. But then I just got to give credit to Coach Aaron Glenn and the perseverance of the New York Jets because I counted them out and I was like, man, this is pretty good for the Bengals right now. They're going to end up leaving this game and they're going to be 4-4. And Joe Cool is getting healthy. And if Joe Burrow get back with the team playing like this, they're only going to reach and they're only going to get further in this conversation. And the sky's the limit for the playoffs for them still, but not so fast. Justin Field had basically 244 yards and a touchdown. But the guy that you need to look out for, the one I feel like played exceptionally well, was Brees Hall. We've been hearing the rumors about him being traded by the trade deadline, but he definitely proved it. That's where he belonged in New York. They lost 7 games in a row before they pulled off this victory. He had 133 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he definitely looked nearly unstoppable. What I like too is Samaje Perine. Usually you hear from Chase Brown being the best running back on the team, but with 9 carries, this man had 94 yards and a touchdown. Joe Flacco had 223 yards, 21 to 34, and he had 2 touchdowns as well, but it just wasn't enough. That final score is, like I said, any given Sunday, because I'm pretty sure that I picked the Bengals on this one. Definitely having an 0-7 team like the Jets coming to town. You just didn't think their mentals would be there. But I'm hoping after this game, Aaron Glenn starts to instill in them what, they instilled in Detroit. And that's the one thing he talked about at the end of the game was grit, grit, grit. So he's trying to definitely get them that, Detroit personality over there. So I just definitely enjoyed that game. Final score, like I said, was 39-38. The Bears and the Ravens surprised me too. I want to talk about this one a little bit because I didn't understand why Cooper Rush was the quarterback in the first place. But then I forgot Tyler Huntley wasn't on that team at the time. He ended up going to the Browns. They ended up releasing him. I heard the story that he said he wanted to go back over and play with Coach Harbaugh. And when he went back over to John Harbaugh, they had a special game today. Well, Sunday. I didn't think that this was going to happen. I thought the Bears was going to come out swinging and win this game. They've been on a 4-game win streak too as well. Tyler Huntley had 186 yards and a touchdown. The one thing you got to put on this, the common denominator, is that tank that he have behind him. You got a guy who's like 6'2", 6'3", 250 pounds. You better get a ball to him. And he hasn't been getting the ball like he should. He had 21 carries for 71 yards and two scores, and he definitely looked like Derrick Henry. You need to start focusing on that. If you can't see nothing downfield, and if he can't get the ball in the open field itself, because he's a pretty good scrambler and Tyler Huntley, you need to just go turn your back and get that ball to that machine and Derrick Henry. I was just surprised how out of hand it got too. That final score was 30-16. So I wasn't expecting the Ravens team, who's been playing so poor lately, to come out and pull that win out. But the only difference was, like I said, the common denominator was when you get Tyler Huntley, a guy who can scramble and kind of do Lamar Jackson-ish kind of things. I'm not saying he could throw or he's a better quarterback, but he has some of the, run and scrambling traits. That's what made that game the difference maker. And then this game right here, I was really surprised when the Dolphins beat up on the Falcons. And that's the thing with the Falcons. The Falcons lost to the Carolina Panthers 30-0. They blanked them guys. They didn't even let them score. So it's like, what do you see in Atlanta Falcons? I didn't really trust them after that game. Then they turn around the next week and bully the Buffalo Bills. And I said, okay, maybe that was just, a hiccup in their game. And then you turn around and you play the Miami Dolphins and you lose 34-10. I mean, I couldn't believe this, man. But the one thing that I really couldn't believe, no disrespect, of course, Kirk Cousins wasn't a starter for a while, but he didn't really look that good neither. 21-31, 173 yards. The surprise of all of this, though, with the Miami Dolphins, Bijan Robinson had 9 carries, 25 yards. That was crazy. Jalen Waddle had a pretty good game, 5 receptions, 99 yards, and a touchdown. That's not even a shocker, you guys. Tua has played some of the worst football this season. But when they needed him right now, because their coach's job is definitely on the line. And I don't know how long it's going to take, but if they keep playing poorly like they did and look like they gave up on this man, that he might not be around by the time the trade deadline materializes and is over with. Tua Tagovailoa was the player of the game, probably be one of the top five quarterbacks of that weekend. He had 205 yards through the air, 20 of 26 and four touchdowns. That was impressive. That's the part that impressed me, not the 34-10 victory, but how well he played and how he executed, especially how bad he's been playing as of late. And then you have the Buffalo Bills versus the Carolina Panthers, another blowout. That final score was 40-9. I don't have no reason to even really discuss or get into that game. But a game that actually did surprise me too, because I definitely believe that I picked the San Francisco 49ers, but the Houston Texans had something cooking in that game. The defense was unstoppable. You had Daniil Hunter and you had Will Anderson, and they disrupted the game for the most part. They rattled Mac Jones. And I enjoyed that because of the fact is I was like, when are they going to finally wake up on defense? But the defense just didn't only play well, the offense played well too at this point as well. CJ Stroud had 318 yards, 30 of 39, two touchdowns. He had a pick on the day, but other than that, he was really sharp. They didn't have Nico Collins, and this is the part that really surprised me because Xavier Hutchinson stepped up. So, yeah, that was a really unexpected treat for them, the Houston Texans fans. And he looked exceptionally well when he played. Mac Jones didn't play bad because they was basically coming from behind the whole game because the Houston Texans punched them in the mouth, but they never was able to recover. They had opportunities, but they just, couldn't get it done. He had 193 yards, two touchdowns, and he had a pick on the day. But the real crazy part about it was too, just like I said, Bijan Robinson only had 25 yards in the previous game with the Atlanta Falcons. Christian McCaffrey had 8 carries and 25 yards too, so they just took him out the game. So that's how well Houston played, and that final score was 26-15. Really good effort on those guys' part. And like I said, when you say any given Sunday, I definitely didn't expect the Houston Texans to step up like they did. So kudos to them. And then I want to talk about this game right here, the Giants and the Eagles. That was one of the games I complained on. Not saying that the game was going to be changed or it was going to impact the game from one of them calls. Unfortunately, one of the things that hurt them in this contest, the New York Giants, the G-men, was the fact that Cam Scatterbo got hurt. I don't know if you guys saw that. It was just a regular textbook tackle. The guy fell and then he tackled Cam Scatterbo after just like a regular textbook tackle. The issue was his ankle was underneath the guy when he fell. And when he fell, it twisted in the opposite direction. It was very, it was bad. That's all I got to say. It was so bad that when I looked at it, I was like, oh my God, is it, do I see what I think I see? I was surprised they showed it too because I was watching NFL Red Zone and they showed it, but I'm not sure if they showed it on regular TV. But I had to get that information and I should have recorded it, but at the time I was still in shock. But I ended up seeing it and showed other people who missed out on it. If you want to see that, definitely hit me up. Let me know. Let me know in the comments. But yeah, it was awful, man. But that final score was like 38-20. It didn't really matter. After he got hurt, I think that was the deciding factor of the game. But at the same time, one of the things I didn't like was a momentum changer was with the tush push. I wouldn't be surprised if that be eliminated coming into next season because at one point when you seen the play, it looked like they was going to get the yards, but when they kept pushing, the ball got punched out and it was a fumble. They didn't stop the play. They didn't, have a whistle or anything. It continued. By this time, the New York Giants should have got the ball. But then they said, no, he was down by contact. And they were saying that they wasn't going to be able to give you a review. You couldn't even get a review on that. So, yeah, Brian Daboll, Jobby is already on the line. So wasn't too happy about that. He was definitely pissed. I just feel like it was just poor execution, and I feel like I always had a bad thing with the officiator because I'm not just going to say when the Detroit Lions are not getting their calls, but the Detroit Lions in one game didn't get some calls, but then in the game when they were playing when they played the Buccaneers, it was some calls we got in our favor. And things was like when they said it was a catch with Travis Kelsey, but then they said with Cade Otton, it wasn't the catch, so it was like make sense with the officiating. And I'm gonna call them out every time when I don't care who is the team or who's playing. Bad calls and bad officiating is bad officiating. Don't really have to too much get into this game because this was a game where I knew the Baker Mayfield was going to be pissed after losing the Monday Night Football game to the Detroit Lions, and he came out swinging. At first, it was a pretty good defensive, game because it was like at some time at the goal line they got like 4 stops, and they got like maybe 7 stops on the goal line to keep the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from scoring. And I was impressed with the way they defense played and how they stepped up. But it still didn't matter at the end because that final score was 23-3. The Tennessee Titans and Indianapolis Colts. This was a really bad game too. I have to give credit where credit is due because it's looking like Daniel Jones right now is one of the MVP candidates in the NFL. You can't deny him. This team right now is 7-1, and they look like one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NFL right now. Until you prove me wrong. He had 272 yards and 3 touchdowns on the day. And that man, Jonathan Taylor, keep playing like he wants to be in that MVP conversation as well. He had 153 yards with 2 touchdowns, and Michael Pittman had 95 yards and a touchdown on the day as well. Cam Ward didn't look that bad that game. He looked actually pretty good. He had 259 yards, a touchdown. He had a pick on the day, but he still looked pretty consistent. Tajay Spears had a touchdown with 59 yards on 9 carries, but this game wasn't even close. So yeah, I would just like to give credit where credit is due and give my flowers to Daniel Jones because when he went over there to the Colts, people laughed and didn't think that he was going to have a chance in hell to actually get the position from Anthony Richardson at the quarterback spot. The funny thing is, if they would have kept him in Minnesota with all the injuries they have, I think that he would have flourished anywhere he was at because Minnesota has a really good O line, a good defense. I believe he would have been able to make it work there too. Moving on, he's with the Colts and they're 7-1 and the best team in football right now. That final score was 38-14. I don't really want to get into this one, but that I know because this one was a really bad game too, and this weekend was full of blowouts. The only close contested game was that Jets and Bengals game, and the Jets had to come back to even make that a relevant game. The Dallas Cowboys versus the Denver Broncos got ugly, and it was ugly fast. Bo Nix had 247 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a pick on the day. Dak Prescott had 188 yards and 2 interceptions. Devontae Williams had 41 yards on 13 carries, and he had 2 touchdowns. But the surprise of the game to me was Troy Franklin. He looked pretty good in this game. The rookie had 89 yards, 6 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. So it was a coming out party for him. But like I said, that score never did get close. You got to put respect on Denver. I still feel like that's the team to beat in their division, even though I know Kansas City is heating up. But until you prove me wrong, I think right now Denver will possibly be that team and come out of that division right now. But you still can't, underestimate the heart of a champion. I will definitely see because they still got to play 2 games. So I want to see how that escalate and see what happened between those 2 teams because Kansas City's definitely been on a hot streak. But 44-24 right now, that just lets you know that that defense is really bad. I know they've been having rumors saying that they want to try to get Max Crosby. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but anything's possible definitely when it comes to the trade deadline. So we'll see. This was a game that had some questionable calls in it too. One of the plays was a free play when they had like offsides and they didn't call it, but it still didn't matter because Pittsburgh, the defense is pretty questionable right now. They haven't been playing that well, and it shows on paper right now. And they got a lot of those guys over there. Most of the veteran guys and the people who's been on the team is still over there. You still got Cam Hayward and T.J. Watt and Hightower, and then you got Slay over there, and you have, Jalen Ramsey. So you got some guys over there, some proven guys in the league, but then you can start to see now with Jalen Ramsey and Slay that they're both getting old. And you can see it in the way they play. They can't keep up with these guys, especially these younger athletic wide receivers. Jordan Love had a really solid game, 360 yards and 3 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers had 219 yards and 2 scores as well. But it was just basically shown, man, they couldn't really stop no one. And the Steelers look bad on defense right now, like they're older and they're getting up in age. What I had to say was you still have to give credit where credit is due. I mean, still, even though they put up 25 points, but the defense of Green Bay showed up when they needed to. And whenever you had an opportunity for Mekhi Parson to go in and rush Aaron Rodgers, he was right there in his face. And I still feel like some of the calls was like petty, but at the end of the day, you still can't let that get you out of a game. You can't let that change the momentum of the game and what you are and what your character is as a team. So losing that game, I still blame the Pittsburgh Steelers for that. And that final score was 35-25. And then we had that Monday night game. The Monday night game was probably the worst game of them all. I don't believe just because Mariota was in the game. Marcus Mariota is not that bad of a backup. And then the talent they supposed to have over there in Washington. It was some bad calls on this game too, of course, but still, I just looked at it and I felt like you had plenty of opportunities to capitalize on some of Patrick Mahomes' mistakes, and that's rare when he makes this many mistakes. He had 299 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he had 2 back-to-back picks. He got one from Bobby Wagner and Marcus Lattimore. But then, like I said, it was only 1 touchdown score for Marcus Mariota and 2 interceptions, and he had 213 yards through the air. Travis Kelsey had one of his best games he had in a couple of years with 99 yards on 6 receptions and a score. But it was all Kansas City. That final score was 28-7. It wasn't even close. I want to get into some of the games as far as the college games and the predictions that I was going to make too. And it starts off on Friday. Memphis versus Rice. I mean, come on now. I'll take Memphis and I'll take the points in the 13.5. Michigan versus Purdue. I'm going to go over. And it's already 20.5 points, but I'm still going over. Penn State versus Ohio State, worst thing that could have happened to them. I'm going over the 20 and a half on this one as well. Vanderbilt in Texas, they have Texas winning at home. I'm going to go with Vanderbilt, and I'm going to take them as the 10-point favorite in this one. And then you have number 10, Miami versus SMU. I'll go with Miami, but I'll take the under on the 12 and a half. West Virginia and Houston. Okay, this one's kind of interesting. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go with Houston, number 22, Houston, and I'll take them with the 13 and a half. Louisville and Virginia Tech, number 16, Louisville. I'm going to give them the points, and I'll take that 10 and a half. Number 2, Indiana versus Maryland. I'm going to take that over, and it's a 21 and a half point favorite, but I'm going to go over that because I still feel like right now that they're the best team that I've seen played in college. I know Ohio State number one, and no disrespect to them, but what Indiana's been doing is quite impressive. Number 5, Georgia and Florida. I will go with Georgia on the road, and I'll take the 7.5 points. Number 12, Notre Dame and Boston College. I'm going to go with Notre Dame, and I'm going to take them 28 and a half points. Number 13, Texas Tech versus Kansas State. Avery Johnson's been a huge disappointment this year. I'm going to go with Texas Tech, and I'm going to go with that 7.5. Number 15, Virginia versus California. I'm going to go with California on an upset. I just want it to be different. And after them barely winning against, the North Carolina Tar Heels, which is not a good team, no disrespect to the hoodie, Bill Belichick, but still, after that performance, and you're going to California, I'll give it to California. I'm going to take them in the upset. South Carolina versus Ole Miss. I'll take Ole Miss at home, and I'm going to take the 12.5 points. Georgia Tech versus North Carolina State. They have Georgia Tech by 5.5 points. I'm going to go a little over that. I'm going to give them a 10.5 point favor. Oklahoma versus Tennessee. I'm going to give this to Tennessee because number 18, Oklahoma, hasn't really played up to expectations, but same thing as number 14, Tennessee. But at home, I'll give them that 3.5 point cushion. Number 23, USC and Nebraska. I'm going to go with USC, and I'll take the 6.5 points because I still feel like if Dylan Raiola plays like Dylan Raiola, they'll be a little bit more respected and probably, more of a team that I can appreciate. He tries too much to be like Patrick Mahomes, and sometimes I think that's what gets him in a lot of trouble. So I just want Dylan Raiola to be Dylan Raiola for once, because if he could do that, I would definitely actually pick them, but I don't think that he will. Number 17, Cincinnati versus number 24, Utah. I'm going to take the Utes at home, and I'm going to take the 9.5 points on this one. Okay. Now, here we are. We're off to the NFL. Week 9, we start off with the Ravens and the Dolphins. Lamar Jackson will be back this game. I told you guys that the last show, but this time they're serious. They said he's supposed to be back this time. So this time I'm going to go with Baltimore on the road, even though Miami played well, but I'm going to definitely still give it to them because they got that machine in the back filled with Derrick Henry. And then at the same time, you got Lamar coming back in prime time. Yeah, I'm taking the Ravens, and I'll take the 7.5 points. The Falcons versus New England Patriots, and the way the Falcons been playing as of late, I would take New England at home, and I'll take the 5.5 points as well. Minnesota Vikings coming to Detroit at 1 o'clock on Fox. I'm going to give it to the Detroit Lions. JJ McCarthy is starting at quarterback. Really doesn't really mean too much. Like I said, still, regardless of the fact, any given Sunday, but I still feel like, now I know we got Malcolm Rodriguez back. I'm not sure what's going to happen with Tyrion Arnold or DJ Reed, but we're going to have some guys finally coming back to the fold soon. And so I'm going to be looking in on that and see what happened and what escalate this week. But I know we got some guys, and they'll be coming back pretty soon. But yeah, I'll take that 8.5 points for the Detroit Lions. Los Angeles Chargers versus the Tennessee Titans. I'm definitely picking the Chargers, and it's not even close. I'll take the 9.5 on this one. The Bears and the Bengals. I'm going to take Chicago on the road with the 2.5 because after that debacle last week with the Cincinnati Bengals, I'm not picking them anymore. Indianapolis Colts versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm gonna go with the Colts because I still feel like right now with Jonathan Taylor and if Daniel Jones can play anywhere the way he's been playing first few games, I'm picking them. But they have them by 3.5. I'm gonna take them as a whole 7.5 because the Steelers defense is very lackluster right now, even at home. That's just to let you know how much disrespect I'm giving them right now. They're at home and I'm still picking the Colts. 49ers and the Giants. I'm going to go with the San Francisco 49ers, even though they're on the roll. But then, you done lost Cam Scatterbo, and I just don't really see a bright future in, New York right now. Any given Sunday, but still, that's a lot to ask. Broncos versus the Texans. Oh, that's going to be a close one. I could say even, but I'm going to still go ahead and I'm going to go with the Broncos, and I'll take the 1.5 point that they were going to give Houston at home. Carolina Panthers and the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to pick the Packers in 12.5 because you never know what type of team you're going to get with the Panthers. Sometimes they play good, sometimes they don't. Like last week, that 40-9 score definitely proved that. Jacksonville Jaguars and the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm gonna go with Jacksonville. I'm gonna take the 3.5 points on that one as well. The New Orleans Saints versus the Los Angeles Rams. I'm gonna go with the Rams in the 13.5 points on this one. Kansas City Chiefs versus the Buffalo Bills. It's going to be a good 4 o'clock game, you guys. I'm going to go with Kansas City with the 1.5 point favor. I don't know what's going on with the Bills. Before the game got out of hand, you can rattle, my man's Josh Allen, man. The defense routed him for a minute until it just got out of hand. But still, if they could do anything like rattle him early in Kansas City. If they can do that, then yeah, I would definitely say Kansas City by 1.5 point. But still, don't get it twisted, you guys. What I'm not saying is this is a road game for Kansas City and the Buffalo Bills are playing at home. So I just hope that we can see some type of pulse or some type of life in my man's because right now Josh Allen needs his game more than anybody. But we'll see. Because it's going to be the 4 o'clock game, and it's probably the best 4 o'clock game that I've seen so far. I'm gonna still go with Kansas City with that 1.5 point just to be safe. Seattle Seahawks versus the Commanders. I'm gonna go with the Seattle Seahawks and I'm gonna take them by a whole 7. And then you have the Monday Night Football game. This is going to be an icky game right here, you guys. No disrespect. You have the 2-5 Arizona Cardinals versus the 3-4-1 Dallas Cowboys. But I'm gonna give it to the Cowboys at home, and I'm gonna get them the 2.5 point favor. I like to thank everybody who take the time out, and I'm blessed for the people who subscribe to my channel. I would like to say if you have anything else you want to add, things you want me to talk about that I'm not talking about for you guys, let me know. Right now I was doing a lot of football on my show, and then usually on Wednesdays we talk about everything. You know, because I do have the Guru's Perspective, and then we have the Guru Sports Session with me and co-host Heba. Not really sure if we're going to do a show tomorrow. I'll just play that by ear. But as of now, if you have any questions or things you want me to talk about, like other sports, because like I said, the World Series is going on right now, and the Los Angeles Dodgers are one of the most crazy epic games that they had. I don't still think that it topped the Tigers versus Seattle Mariners game. It went on all damn night long, but it was still a good game. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was like 13 something innings in that game. It was a crazy game with a walk-off home run from Freddie Freeman. If you guys want me to talk more about that, let me know because there's some things that are still going on, but most of that stuff we discuss on the show. So I would like to say thank you all for chiming in. And at the same time, if you want to find out how to reach out to me, you can hit me on my social media networks. You can find me at Whovy, WHOOVI. That's my Instagram page. And then Sports Guru to You is my Facebook page where I just put the scores and breaking news, anything that's going around in any leagues right now. So if you're interested, you can check that out because I usually have a lot of good stuff on there before some of even the bigger names like ESPN and Bleacher Report get those reports out. And of course, I like to say thank you all for the love and support that you've been showing me on TikTok. It's definitely been humbling, and my YouTube page as well, man. That's been definitely to the point where you guys are making me feel like it's definitely worth doing everything I'm doing and then some. love you all for that. Y'all know who you are, for my family and my friends and, my support team. I don't want to make this like a Grammy or something, or I'm spending all the time on this and dwelling on it. But I love you guys, man. Thank you for making the dream a reality. It's a lot of people who are involved in listening and chiming in on this show. But yeah, my TikTok page is hugh.lee6. And I want to continue to bring out the best stuff that we could, me and E-Buck, and continue our promos and doing everything we're doing. I just want you guys to hit and link in those comments and let us know what you like, and, just kind of interact with us as well, because we appreciate when people have things they say in the comment and talk to us, whether it's something we like or we don't like. That'll definitely improve and help us better our shows and step up our game as we go. I definitely feel like we've been doing a good job at that, but at the same time, we would like to know if you feel like we can do better as well. But like I said, a comment that we always say through life in general: don't stress, let the Lord handle the rest. Peace, and until next week.